Several numbers were seen changing rapidly on a casino machine there. Everyone looked in disbelief that the numbers on the machine could reach that high. Even Oh Seung-woo couldn't believe that Seo Ju-hyun was so skilled at playing the machine. Seo Ju-hyun, who had earned a lot of money, took a voucher from the machine and intended to exchange it for money. Seo Ju-hyun also told his subordinates to move to another location. Oh Seung-woo, who was holding the voucher directly, increasingly couldn't believe the amount of money that would be made by exchanging it. But when Seo Ju-hyun walked out, a guard stopped him and asked for his permission to examine Seo Ju-hyun. Seo Ju-hyun just smiled in response and allowed the guard to examine his body, but the guard didn't find anything suspicious other than a strange gold object coiled around Seo Ju-hyun's thumb. Seo Ju-hyun pointed out that the object was just a souvenir, and it seemed that Seo Ju-hyun was able to trick the guard. The object was actually a relic of the golden axe that transformed itself into a pocket knife. Seo Ju-hyun brought the relic because the golden axe's relic can detect money and valuable objects, and by using this relic, Seo Ju-hyun can find out which machines will give him the jackpot. Not only that, with the relic, Seo Ju-hyun can also detect which casino will make him the most profit. Oh Seung-woo, impressed because Seo Ju-hyun passed the officer's inspection. Not only that, other officers also checked the machine used by Seo Ju-hyun, but the machine looked normal, as if proving that Seo Ju-hyun got his benefit simply because he was very lucky. Seo Ju-hyun walked towards the cashier to exchange his money before he would later go to another casino to take out more money. When the cashier received the voucher that Seo Ju-hyun used to exchange it for money, he was shocked. Not long after that, Seo Ju-hyun got a lot of money. Even Oh Seung-woo didn't understand how Seo Ju-hyun could get so much profit from the casino. Oh Seung-woo suggested that Seo Ju-hyun would be better off going home than taking part in the auction, but the purpose of Seo Ju-hyun in coming to Las Vegas was not to get money, but Seo Ju-hyun wanted to get a relic which will be useful for him later. Relic: the golden axes reacted when Seo Ju-hyun entered the new casino. The relic could feel a huge profit tonight. Seo Ju-hyun told the relic to look for a machine that could give him the jackpot. A notification window suddenly appeared. Even though Seo Ju-hyun was in the casino now, this place was not much different from a battlefield, where when many people suffered, then this place would become a paradise for the relics that existed. When Seo Ju-hyun walked in, one of his subordinates called him with a moving bag. When Seo Ju-hyun opened the bag, he was very surprised when he saw the silver axe's relic also reacted now. The golden and silver axe relics have very different abilities from each other. The golden axe will make the user get many benefits around it when the relic reacts, but the silver axe only reacts if the user is in danger. Seo Ju-hyun doesn't understand why the silver axe relic is reacting now. There is a commotion in front of Seo Ju-hyun's eyes. The two people are arguing and blaming each other. When the attention of Seo Ju-hyun and his subordinates was diverted, there was someone standing behind them ready with a knife to kill Seo Ju-hyun and take back the money that Seo Ju-hyun got. But with the agility of Seo Ju-hyun, he was able to avoid the attack and managed to make the man fall to the floor. The man turned out to be a dealer in this casino. Seo Ju-hyun couldn't understand why that person attacked him. It wasn't unusual for someone to attack another person for no apparent reason if it wasn't for the tomb that would appear or the user of the cursed relic. Seo Ju-hyun felt a black aura behind him. When his eyes glanced at the black aura, he saw a person with golden blonde hair walking elegantly inside the casino. All of Seo Ju-hyun's subordinates were amazed by the woman's beauty, but not Seo Ju-hyun, who had a panicked and shocked face, visible with some sweat starting to roll down his face. And immediately, Seo Ju-hyun ordered his subordinates to leave this casino right now. Seo Ju-hyun still had a panicked and anxious expression on his face. He didn't expect to meet that woman in this casino, and everything makes sense now. Irene Hilton, the woman's name. She is the youngest child of the family who owns the wealthy Hilton Bank, but that's not all that Irene Hilton has to worry about. God-tier relic is the strongest relic of all types of relics that exist. The user of this relic will easily surpass the users of relics below it, and because of this type of relic, the user holds the title of God. The user of this God relic can easily control all existing relics with his power. And among these gods, Irene Hilton was a very terrible relic user in her previous life. She got the title God of Failure, causing everything near her to experience disaster and misfortune. Some people may lose their wealth and become bankrupt, and some companies may fail in business. He is also the cause of an economic crisis on a global scale. Those are some of the reasons for Seo Ju-hyun to avoid contact with Irene Hilton. But luck was not on Seo Ju-hyun's side when Irene Hilton suddenly ran towards him and called him. Seo Ju-hyun tried to ignore him and walked away from Irene, but Irene still chased him. And sure enough, like Irene's title, just before Seo Ju-hyun grabbed the doorknob, he got several notification windows saying that there was a terrible aura, and that aura caused the relic in Seo Ju-hyun's hand to receive damage. The big one had been affected by Irene's power. Seo Ju-hyun was very shocked and panicked when Irene became very close to him. Even Irene's hand held Seo Ju-hyun's arm. Seo Ju-hyun is trapped now with Irene Hilton, who is now right in front of him, and from Irene's hand a dark purple aura appears. As soon as the aura hits Seo Ju-hyun, several notification windows appear. The notification window contained all the bad things that could happen now. Seeing that Seo Ju-hyun pushed Irene's hand away from his arm, Seo Ju-hyun's subordinates also felt strange when Seo Ju-hyun suddenly acted strange in front of Irene. One of Seo Ju-hyun's subordinates chirped if he remembered who the woman was now. He said that the woman's name was Irene Hilton, an American woman from the wealthy Hilton family. Irene asked to confirm Seo Ju-hyun. She wanted to know how Seo Ju-hyun won several jackpots in casinos. It turned out that Irene had looked for Seo Ju-hyun in several existing casinos, and asked Seo Ju-hyun to teach him how. Seo Ju-hyun felt strange. Why would someone from a very rich family play in a casino and want to win the jackpot? Seo Ju-hyun rejected Irene and just walked away from her. His subordinates, who couldn't keep quiet because Seo Ju-hyun flatly rejected Irene's request, made Seo Ju-hyun annoyed with him, and as soon as Seo Ju-hyun turned around, he saw his subordinates having the misfortune of approaching Irene. Seo Ju-hyun couldn't help but have to get them out of the casino with great difficulty because they were still in pain. Seo Ju-hyun took his subordinates to a park not far from the casino and explained to his subordinates why they should minimize contact with Irene and asked them to stay away from her. Seo Ju-hyun also asked them to look after his bag full of money and was about to walk away to the auction house. Everything didn't go according to plan for Seo Ju-hyun, who wanted to get more money because of the appearance of Irene. Seo Ju-hyun had arrived at the auction house. While he was deep in thought, someone called him from behind. When Seo Ju-hyun turned to the person who called him, the person instead belittled Seo Ju-hyun by thinking Seo Ju-hyun is a commoner. Seo Ju-hyun recognized that person. His name was Yoon Si-woo. He was CEO Kwon's right-hand man. Even though Yoon looked younger now, but Seo Ju-hyun could still recognize him. And as Seo Ju-hyun assumed he saw the face he hated most in his life, CEO Kwon Tae-jun, Seo Ju-hyun looked at him with hatred and revenge. Seo Ju-hyun still remembers what the man did in his previous life. CEO Kwon, who doesn't know anything, just gives a cold stare at Seo Ju-hyun. Seo Ju-hyun knows that the current CEO Kwon still doesn't recognize him, But like what he wanted from the past, he will take all the relics that CEO Kwon will take at the auction later. Seo Ju Hyun heard a noise from behind him. It seemed that everyone there had lost signal and connection on their cell phones. Seo Ju Hyun, who knew very well what was happening, his eyes began to search around the room. And sure enough, Irene Hilton was there. Seo Ju Hyun hurriedly looked away, not wanting to make eye contact with Irene, but it was too late. The woman had seen him first. Irene tries to call Seo Ju Hyun. She begs him to listen to what she has to say. Irene doesn't know what to do anymore. And right after that, Seo Ju Hyun had his bad luck. His face hit the door hard. Irene, who was worried, asked about the condition of Seo Ju Hyun. Seo Ju Hyun asked Irene to stop following him, and Irene casually replied by saying that that was the problem. Seo Ju Hyun was annoyed to hear Irene's words, who apparently knew that all this time he himself had caused it. Everyone gets unlucky. Irene then explained that she might be the cause of people around her suffering bad luck, and that's why Irene wanted her luck as much as Seo Ju Hyun. Seo Ju Hyun doesn't know what Irene is thinking. In her previous life, she was the god of failure, who caused financial losses for everyone in the world, and caused problems in several countries. And now Irene, who is Seo Ju Hyun's, eyes were very different. Irene held Seo Ju Hyun's hand, making Seo Ju Hyun a little surprised and afraid. She asked sincerely to Seo Ju Hyun to teach her how to get that much luck. Irene was even willing to give money in whatever amount Seo Ju Hyun asked for. But in contrast to that, Seo Ju Hyun saw a notification window in front of his eyes. The window said that his tolerance reacted because Seo Ju Hyun received an attack from a dangerous aura. Seo Ju Hyun realized that his skill was active because Irene was nearby. Seo Ju Hyun smiled happily with his current condition, because now by using his tolerance skill, Seo Ju Hyun no longer needs to avoid Irene. In fact, by being close to Irene, he will increase his tolerance skill. Seo Ju Hyun thought again about the benefits he could get, and when Seo Ju Hyun looked at CEO Kwon, it was seen that CEO Kwon was also affected by bad luck by being around Irene Hilton. Seo Ju Hyun thought again about what he should do now. Then he smiled because he had gotten something truly extraordinary. According to him, Seo Ju Hyun smiled looking at Irene. Seo Ju Hyun accepted Irene's previous offer. Irene was very happy to hear the answer from Seo Ju Hyun. Then Seo Ju Hyun explained that getting luck is not an easy thing, and Irene accepted that. Seo Ju Hyun also tried to invite Irene to come with him to the auction place now. Irene, who heard that, did not mind the entrance ticket fee and will accompany Seo Ju Hyun to the auction place. Seo Ju Hyun smiled happily seeing Irene running to the cashier to buy her entrance ticket. He was looking forward to what would happen with Irene in the future. Did they succeed in getting the relic they wanted? And what about CEO Kwon, who was affected by Irene's misfortune? The voice of an MC can be heard welcoming the audience to his event. The presenter is a moderator who will lead today's auction. Seo Ju Hyun and Irene are seen sitting next to each other looking at what items will be auctioned tonight. Seo Ju Hyun seems to be smiling happily because this time, there are not too many people taking part in the auction. This is none other than because Irene was present at the event this time, making most people withdraw shortly after Irene entered the auction room. But Seo Ju Hyun still saw CEO Kwon along with his subordinates. The fact that CEO Kwon still remained in this room even though his factory in China burned down, there must be something he wanted in the auction this time. Irene is in a good mood now. She is interested in one of the wines that has been fermented for hundreds of years and offers it to Seo Ju Hyun. But Seo Ju Hyun refuses and says that the item he wants will appear later. Seo Ju Hyun glanced at Irene, who was still focused on looking at the items being auctioned. Seo Ju Hyun still couldn't stop thinking that the god of failure, who was now with him, was very different from the one he remembered from his previous life. Seo Ju Hyun also didn't feel that Irene was acting to cover up the fact that she was the god of failure, and the strangest part was when she didn't know anything about the relic. Seo Ju Hyun is still thinking about the possibilities, and comes to a conclusion that the god of failure is actually a good person, but because of a relic that is inside him without his knowledge, it makes people around him suffer bad luck, making his life and personality change because of the behavior of the people around him. When Seo Ju Hyun was lost in thought, Irene spoke, making Seo Ju Hyun surprised by what Irene said and asked Irene for more explanation. Irene then explained that she was very grateful because there were people who wanted to talk to her about the problems she had. Seo Ju Hyun also said that it was not something to worry about. A notification window appeared in front of him suddenly while he was talking to Irene, and what was surprising was that the relic aura inside Irene increased because Irene's mood changed to happiness. Instantly, bad luck of enormous intensity spread within a radius of 1 kilometer and even caused an earthquake. Not only that, the relic that Seo Ju Hyun had also screamed in pain because of it. Seo Ju Hyun didn't believe that there was a relic that could increase its own strength just because the user felt happy, but thanks to this, Seo Ju Hyun's tolerance skill increased drastically. Seo Ju Hyun tries to change the atmosphere by discussing other things. Seo Ju Hyun gives another explanation that increasing his luck doesn't mean it will prevent people around him from having bad luck. This made Irene's mood return to normal. After the small event caused by Irene, the auction went back to normal. Everyone seemed to be fighting for an item by raising their hand to win the auction. Seo Ju Hyun knew that they were arguing because Irene was by his side, and he again thought of a way to expel the participants in the room. Seo Ju Hyun glanced back at Irene and tried to improve Irene's mood and make her happy again. With that, the existing participants would have more bad luck. Seo Ju Hyun made Irene happy with his words. Seo Ju Hyun said that he would help Irene to fix her problem, and because Irene was happy again, it made all the participants in the room become crazy and chaotic. They start fighting over anything they see even though the item is useless, but they still fight over it, wasting their money on useless items. Because of this, it became easier for Seo Ju Hyun to get the relic he wanted even though he had to give up several times his relic, which fell into the hands of CEO Kwon. This happened because CEO Kwon's dominance power was very high. But actually, the relic that Seo Ju Hyun gave to CEO Kwon was a relic that he thought was useless. Seo Ju Hyun recorded what relics he got and is still waiting for the god-tier relic to appear at this auction. Strangely, even though the auction was almost finished, Seo Ju Hyun still couldn't find a relic with that tier. Then the voice of Irene caught the attention of Seo Ju Hyun. Irene asked for confirmation if Seo Ju Hyun would really accepted his offer to help him. And right before Seo Ju Hyun was about to leave, he saw a relic that caught his attention. But not only Seo Ju Hyun was interested, because it seemed like CEO Kwon was also interested in the relic. Qin Shi Huang's elixir plant is a god-tier relic which is also a healing-type relic, and the struggle for the relic between Seo Ju Hyun and CEO Kwon begins. Emperor Qin Shi Huang was a very powerful ruler during the Qin dynasty. It was rumored that the elixir of life had been found, and Qin Shi Huang ordered all his subordinates to look for it. And after several years, the elixir of life was finally found in the form of almond plant seeds. In his previous life, the relic this is owned by CEO Kwon. This relic is what makes Seo Ju Hyun tied to CEO Kwon, because he has no other choice to heal his ailing body first. The fight for the relic began. They both didn't want to give in. Seo Ju Hyun was a little embarrassed by Irene when the host mentioned the power of the plant seed. CEO Kwon and Seoju Hyun fought over the relic at a fantastic price, and other participants also fought over it before CEO Kwon set a very high price. Seoju Hyun, who didn't want to lose, spoke to Irene about the offer they made. Seoju Hyun promised to help Irene with her problem on the condition that she got the item being auctioned in front of her, and with her very high self-confidence, Irene was willing to do it for Seoju Hyun. Did they manage to get that item tonight? What solution does Seoju Hyun actually have for Irene? The figure mentioned had exceeded the normal limit for an auction item. Everyone could only watch the struggle between Seoju Hyun and CEO Kwon in disbelief. Then suddenly CEO Kwon said the figure $100 million. They were all very surprised to hear these numbers. Seoju Hyun was annoyed with CEO Kwon. He became a little desperate because more than what was mentioned by CEO Kwon was beyond the money he had. Seoju Hyun became even more desperate. However, Seoju Hyun saw Irene, who raised her hand and smiled when Irene started to join in the fight for the relic, helping Seoju Hyun get the item he wanted. Everyone there was shocked by the number mentioned by Irene. They all couldn't believe the amount of money Irene had risked to get this item. CEO Kwon, who didn't want to lose, started to increase his bet again, and Irene casually increased her bet as if she had all the money in the world. CEO Kwon, who didn't accept it, started to get annoyed with Irene, who suddenly joined in this bet. When CEO Kwon's subordinate asked Kwon to just give up because he knew how much money Irene Hilton had, but CEO Kwon, who still didn't want to lose, bet again. Irene also did the same thing. She continued to increase her bet until it reached $300 million. Seoju Hyun just smiled happily seeing the two of them fighting over the item. Actually, Seoju Hyun was just happy to see Seoju Hyun's losing face. CEO Kwon. And after the struggle took place, the elixir plant fell into the hands of Irene. Elsewhere, Seoju Hyun and Irene are talking about the auction they took part in earlier. Seoju Hyun still can't understand that Irene will bet so much money there. But it seems money is not a big problem for Irene, and with Seoju Hyun having accepted her offer, Irene asks how Seoju Hyun will help her find a solution to her problem. Seoju Hyun said that there was nothing he could do for Irene, making him disappointed to hear this. Irene felt that he had been betrayed by Seoju Hyun, but Seoju Hyun refused and began to explain to Irene. Seoju Hyun said that the way to help Irene was to extract something that Irene had, but Irene became confused by what Seoju Hyun said. Seoju Hyun asked Irene to take out the relic that Irene had. Then Seoju Hyun said to give her an item that always follows Irene wherever she goes. But Irene was confused because she didn't have something like that. But Seoju Hyun said that it was impossible and asked Irene to throw away all the things she had and make sure that one of the things thrown away would come back. But Irene said that she had tried it before but it didn't work. Seoju Hyun felt something strange asking Irene if she had some kind of tattoo or something. Irene looked shocked. She forgot that she had a tattoo on her body. Relics are divided into two categories: expendable relics and possession relics. The tattoo that appears is one of the possession relics. That's the reason why Sasaki has a tattoo on his arm, because it is a sign that the relic has a bond with its user. Everyone can use expendable relic and has a usage limit, but possession relic can only be used by the user and has no usage limit. Irene also showed a photo of her tattoo. Seoju Hyun was very surprised to see the photo. The relic that Irene had was a parasitic type relic. This relic forces itself to stay in the user's body. Seoju Hyun returned Irene's cell phone and thought back to what he should do to be able to help Irene, who looked worried now. Seo Ju Hyun thought that this was a simple problem, but it turned out that it was not as easy as he imagined. Seo Ju Hyun wrote down his cell phone number and gave it to Irene and promised to discuss this matter again if they had more time. Lots. Seo Ju Hyun left Irene and thought that he would make Irene one of his friends and partners. Seo Ju Hyun tried to call his subordinate, but he couldn't get through. Seo Ju Hyun was sure that something was wrong here. It seemed like Seo Ju Hyun put his trust in an unreliable person. Seo Ju Hyun gave money to the person he was talking to and asked him to do something for Seo Ju Hyun. Then Seo Ju Hyun's subordinates were seen trying to escape from Seo Ju Hyun by carrying Seo Ju Hyun's money, but before they could open the bag containing the money, Seo Ju Hyun came by. Suddenly, they didn't know how Seo Ju Hyun could find out which direction they were running to. Seo Ju Hyun managed to find them by using his golden axe relic. They tried to find a defense, but Seo Ju Hyun took something out of his trouser pocket. Oh Seung-woo was confused as to why Seo Ju Hyun even took out the stone. And as soon as Seo Ju Hyun activated the relic in his hand, a stone pillar suddenly appeared behind him, making them all surprised to see the stone pillar. There is a sentence that says, "An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth," and as it says, the enemy who attacks him will receive back the attack he gave back to himself. Seo Ju Hyun said that this was a relic he got at the auction earlier, and with the help of the staff he was able to use it first. By saying a sentence, Seo Ju Hyun will activate his relic to avenge the actions committed by Oh Seung-woo. Then what kind of reply will Oh Seung-woo receive for betraying Seo Ju Hyun? Default text: Seo Ju Hyun is seen saying a sentence to activate his relic, and after Seo Ju Hyun finishes his sentence, there is a strange mark on the hand of Seo Ju Hyun's subordinate. Seo Ju Hyun himself didn't even think that this relic would work as he wanted. The relic, the Code of Hammurabi, is a relic that has the power to return attacks given by opponents back to the opponent who attacked him. However, the Code of Hammurabi is also a book of rules. Seo Ju Hyun is curious about what punishment his subordinates will receive now and in the future. And after finishing, the strange marks on his subordinates' hands disappeared. Seo Ju Hyun said that as long as they don't betray him again, then they will be fine. The punishment they will receive if they betray again is that their bodies will be destroyed instantly. Seo Ju Hyun smiled when he succeeded in carrying out a deal using the relic. Seo Ju Hyun's subordinates were afraid and couldn't believe what they saw earlier. Seo Ju Hyun said that if the world they lived in would become chaotic, and they would be safe as long as they were with him, even though this was called an agreement, they were not safe being treated badly. They would still be paid by Seo Ju Hyun like normal workers. They were a little in disbelief and asked what work they had to do, but Seo Ju Hyun chose not to answer. In the morning, in a room in the apartment, a large pot with fertilizer was seen beside it. Seo Ju Hyun was standing in front of his subordinates and pointing at a sapling that was just lying on the floor. Seo Ju Hyun ordered his subordinates to plant the tree, and Oh Seung-woo couldn't believe it and was shocked when he heard that the plant was worth $500 million. Seo Ju Hyun, who saw and listened to the relic, spoke a little happily because it seemed like his subordinates had high sociability, as evidenced by the relic not rejecting them, because last night, when Seo Ju Hyun brought it here, the plant rebelled. Seo Ju Hyun saw those who carefully planted the plant in the pot. Seo Ju Hyun felt he had found someone suitable to care for the plant. Seo Ju Hyun felt that his phone rang and saw a very familiar number. Because the number belonged to CEO Kwon, Seo Ju Hyun picked up the phone and started talking to CEO Kwon. The two of them greeted each other like friends who knew each other. Seo Ju Hyun knew why CEO Kwon called him now, and sure enough, CEO Kwon asked about the almond sapling that was in his hand. But Seo Ju-hyun, who didn't want to get into trouble, refused and hung up the phone. CEO Kwon, who was hung up on by Seo Ju-hyun, was angry and annoyed with Seo Ju-hyun. CEO Kwon can't do anything now with the sapling almonds in Seo Ju-hyun's hands. CEO Kwon also blames his subordinates who kept stopping him from getting the plants yesterday. The subordinate felt sorry for stopping CEO Kwon from being auctioned yesterday and wanted to take responsibility in the hope that he would get a promotion by CEO Kwon. His subordinate tried to take Seo Ju-hyun's sapling almonds using the relic he had. It seems he underestimated Seo Ju-hyun too much. Back again with Seo Ju-hyun and his subordinates who still can't believe that Seo Ju-hyun doesn't care after turning off the phone from CEO Kwon unilaterally. Seo Ju-hyun, who was annoyed, threatened Oh Seung-woo to be quiet or he would split his body in two using the relic he had. Seo Ju-hyun walked away from Oh Seung-woo and asked him to always send updates on the almond saplings that he cared for every day. Seo Ju-hyun knew very well that CEO Kwon must have planned something to take the almond saplings. Seo Ju-hyun had no choice but to stop someone who was following him using the silver axe relic. Seo Ju-hyun accidentally left his apartment. And as he expected, he saw Yoon Si-woo around him. Seo Ju-hyun, who saw him, could feel the aura of the relic from Yoon Si-woo. Seo Ju-hyun smiled and started planning something. Yoon Si-woo sounded angry with someone he was calling now, and when he walked into the bar he was surprised to see Seo Ju-hyun sitting at a bar counter. Yoon Si-woo came to Seo Ju-hyun without knowing what Seo Ju-hyun had planned for him. Yoon Si-woo didn't even realize that he had fallen into the trap set by Seo Ju-hyun. Yoon Si-woo, who felt ignored, became annoyed and angry with Seo Ju-hyun. Meanwhile, Seo Ju-hyun was still ignoring him before finally Yoon Si-woo became annoyed and hit the table in front of Seo Ju-hyun. Seo Ju-hyun became angry and slammed Yoon Si-woo until he fell to the floor. The angry Yoon Si-woo couldn't accept being treated like this by Seo Ju-hyun. Seo Ju-hyun, who knows that Yoon Si-woo has the relic, now thinks about taking it from Yoon Si-woo in a way that he has prepared beforehand. Then will Seo Ju-hyun be able to take the relic brought by Yoon Si-woo? And what will Seo Ju-hyun do to Yoon Si-woo? After CEO Kwon knew that Seo Ju-hyun had the relic he wanted, and as Seo Ju-hyun suspected CEO Kwon sent someone to track him down, however CEO Kwon made a mistake by only sending Yoon Si-woo alone. Even though Yoon Si-woo is a relic user, but that won't be enough to fight Seo Ju-hyun. Back again with Yoon Si-woo still sitting on the floor after previously Seo Ju-hyun slammed him because he annoyed him. CEO Kwon still underestimated Seo Ju-hyun. If he just sent Yoon Si-woo, and that would be it, was an advantage for Seo Ju-hyun to take the relic that Yoon Si-woo had. Yoon Si-woo got up from the floor and cursed at Seo Ju-hyun for slamming him, but Yoon Si-woo had to act professionally now and not question Seo Ju-hyun's treatment of him for the sake of the success of his mission now. Yoon Si-woo became annoyed when Seo Ju-hyun pretended not to remember him when he met at the Midas yesterday. Seo Ju-hyun then mocked Yoon Si-woo by calling him a loser, which was used by Yoon Si-woo. CEO Kwon. The taunts from Seo Ju-hyun succeeded in making Yoon Si-woo annoyed and angry. His patience had run out now, and a notification window appeared in front of Seo Ju-hyun's eyes. The window said that because Yoon Si-woo can control his emotions, the control he has over his relic is reduced. Seo Ju-hyun knows his weaknesses. Yoon Si-woo is very easily provoked by just words. Even though he acts arrogant, he actually has an inferiority complex within him. Yoon Si-woo used to be an heiress from a large company, but because of his stupid attitude and behavior he was expelled, and luckily he met CEO Kwon who helped him become successful again as he is today. Yoon Si-woo is very working hard just to get recognition from CEO Kwon, and because of that he doesn't want to bow his head to anyone other than CEO Kwon. In his previous life, he was always looking for ways to start a fight with Seo Ju-hyun. But if Seo Ju-hyun mentioned a little about his shortcomings, he would immediately lose control and be unable to control his own emotions. Because of this, he would not be able to use relic with a higher rank. Because the relic will very easily control Yoon Si-woo, who has lost control of his own emotions. Seo Ju-hyun smiled and started thinking about things that could make Yoon Si-woo really lose control. Seo Ju-hyun said that he might give him the plant if Yoon Si-woo wanted to ask for it. Friendly, Yoon Si-woo had no other choice but to obey Seo Ju-hyun. And immediately, Yoon Si-woo obeyed Seo Ju-hyun's words. Seo Ju-hyun actually laughed out loud and couldn't stop thinking if he was really following what Seo Ju-hyun said to him. Yoon Si-woo, who could no longer control his emotions, opened a glass bottle containing a yellow liquid and started attacking Seo Ju-hyun using the liquid in the bottle. And when Yoon Si-woo was sure that he had hit Seo Ju-hyun with the liquid, he was surprised when the liquid didn't work. Seo Ju-hyun, who didn't want to lose his chance, counterattacked Yoon Si-woo and made his head hit the wall very hard. After that, a notification window appeared saying that Yoon Si-woo's ability to control the relic was drastically reduced because he couldn't control his own emotions. Yoon Si-woo, in a sad state, was still angry with Seo Ju-hyun. In the end, Seo Ju-hyun took the relic that was in the hands of Yoon Si-woo. Seo Ju-hyun, in an instant, can you tell if the relic owned by Yoon Si-woo is a relic with a possession type? And when the relic asked Seo Ju-hyun, he said that now Seo Ju-hyun was the master. Then Seo Ju-hyun used the relic on Yoon Si-woo. Immediately the relic was used on Yoon Si-woo. He became panicked and afraid now. The name of the relic that Seo Ju-hyun is currently using is the Voodoo Priest Zombie Powder, not only because this possession relic has an A rank, this relic also has extraordinary abilities. Voodooism started with African people when they tried to enslave someone. They believed that voodooism was a way to punish people by turning themselves into zombies. This rumor began to spread and this relic was created. Just by touching or even inhaling this relic, it will cause the victim to lose consciousness and turn them into a zombie. Seo Ju-hyun left the bar when he managed to stop Yoon Si-woo, who was trying to take the relic that Seo Ju-hyun had. Seo Ju-hyun was preparing to leave this place. Meanwhile, with CEO Kwon, he saw his own subordinates turn into zombies who had no consciousness. CEO Kwon didn't expect that Yoon Si-woo became a zombie because he was hit by his own relic. Yoon Si-woo caused trouble in the middle of the city by walking around without wearing a single thread on his body. This clearly made CEO Kwon even more annoyed and angry. CEO Kwon was angry because if this incident spread, it would make his good name fall instantly. Another subordinate belonging to CEO Kwon said that the items brought by Yoon Si-woo were also stolen by someone when they were about to carry out an investigation into this case. CEO Kwon stopped him. CEO Kwon knew correctly that the person who took the relic belonging to Yoon Si-woo was Seo Ju-hyun. CEO Kwon then asked his subordinates to send his lawyer to resolve this problem. At an airport in Las Vegas, Seo Ju-hyun is seen together with his subordinates storing new items that will be brought by Seo Ju-hyun. Seo Ju-hyun also asks Oh Seung-woo to store and taking care of the relic belonging to Seo Ju-hyun. But Oh Seung-woo, who doesn't know anything about relics, thinks that Seo Ju-hyun's belongings don't look that valuable. The relics that Seo Ju-hyun had when he was in Korea were the relics, the golden and silver axes, muramasa, the Egyptian funeral knife, and the escape rope. While in the Midas, Seo Ju-hyun managed to get several new relics, namely the Code of Hammurabi, Shakespeare's pen, Marie Antoinette's necklace, and finally Emperor Qin's elixir plant. Seo Ju-hyun also got new relics that he took from the hands of Yoon Si-woo before. There are several new relics, namely zombie powder, foxtail millet, and Homero's glasses. Seo Ju-hyun felt very satisfied with the many relics he got while he was in Las Vegas, but someone came calling his name and said that he was TBM's exclusive lawyer named Lee Jin-ah. Seo Ju-hyun knows who this woman is. She is one of CEO Kwon's henchmen. What will Seo Ju-hyun do now? And what is the meaning of Lee Jin-ah looking for Seo Ju-hyun? At a place at the airport, Lee Jin-ah and Seo Ju-hyun were seen discussing something about Yoon Si-woo's belongings that Seo Ju-hyun had taken previously. The purpose of Lee Jin-ah coming now is that he wants to convey a message from CEO Kwon, who wants to recruit Seo Ju-hyun to be part of his team, TBM excavation team. Seo Ju-hyun had already guessed from the start the intention of Lee Jin-ah coming now, who was none other than wanting to give a contract which according to Seo Ju-hyun was a kind of slavery contract. Lee Jin-ah seemed shocked by the words of Seo Ju-hyun, who called it a slavery contract. Lee Jin-ah also said that if Seo Ju-hyun accepted this contract, then they would not disturb Seo Ju-hyun's life again. Seo Ju-hyun said what would happen if he refused this offer. Actually, Seo Ju-hyun himself already knew what CEO Kwon was planning, but still with his persistence, Lee Jin-ah was still trying to convince Seo Ju-hyun and give him a little lesson on the words used by Seo Ju-hyun. Seo Ju-hyun, who felt annoyed because he received threats from Lee Jin-ah, reached for something from his trouser pocket. Seo Ju-hyun took out a zombie powder relic from his trouser pocket, which made Lee Jin-ah shocked and panicked. Seo Ju-hyun, who thought that Lee Jin-ah was looking down on him because he didn't want to use the relic in a public place, instead opened the relic and used a little of the relic for Lee Jin-ah. Oh Seung-woo and the other subordinates were shocked to hear the voice from the direction of Seo Ju-hyun and wanted to check what was actually happening there. Lee Jin-ah, who fell on the floor, tried to get rid of the zombie powder from his body. Lee Jin-ah didn't expect that Seo Ju-hyun would actually use the relic in a public place like this. But Seo Ju-hyun didn't mind if this would cause everyone to know about the relic. Seo Ju-hyun instead told his subordinates to take a video now and upload it on an online media platform. Seeing Lee Jin-ah, who was unaffected even though he had been hit by zombie powder, Seo Ju-hyun now knew that Lee Jin-ah had high control so he could withstand the effects of zombie powder. Lee Jin-ah moved backwards while taking out his relic, and a moment later he used his relic to attack Seo Ju-hyun. But Seo Ju-hyun, who had prepared the Code of Hammurabi relic, was able to easily reverse it, attacks Lee Jin-ah and makes him attack Lee Jin-ah. Lee Jin-ah was surprised because Seo Ju-hyun used the relic to block the attack from Lee Jin-ah. With his silver axe relic, Seo Ju-hyun intended to finish off Lee Jin-ah right now. Lee Jin-ah could only apologize to Seo Ju-hyun for not killing him, as well as Oh Seung-woo, who tried to stop Seo Ju-hyun from killing at a time like this. But Seo Ju Hian said that his attack would not kill Li Jin-ah but would only destroy anything valuable that was in Li Jin-ah's hands. Then a sound like an explosion was heard. All the police panicked trying to get to the origin of the sound. The police received a report that there was a woman who committed sexual violence against visitors in the cafe. CEO Kwan, who happened to hear the report from the police, knew that this was the doing of Seo Ju Hian. He became angry and increasingly annoyed with Seo Ju Hian. Seo Ju Hian picked up an item dropped by Li Jin-ah before. Seo Ju Hian tried to analyze what relic was in his hand now. Paris Montmartre painter's ink. Suddenly, a voice was heard by Seo Ju Hian. The voice asked Seo Ju Hian to follow his directions because the place where Seo Ju Hian was now would fall into chaos. Seo Ju Hian, who thought it was the crow, tried to ask, but the voice wouldn't answer and told Seo Ju Hian to obey him. Seo Ju Hian, who was annoyed because the crow always told him to do something, punched empty air. He was very annoyed because the crow sent him back to the past without any warning. The crow said that Seo Ju Hian would regret it for not following his orders, and a moment after the voice disappeared, Seo Ju Hian heard CEO Kwan praising him for attacking Li Jin-ah. CEO Kwan approached Seo Ju Hian and introduced himself to Seo Ju Hian and his subordinates. Immediately CEO Kwan introduced himself to Oh Seung-woo, who was next to Seo Ju Hian, unable to move his body. Seo Ju Hian then glanced at CEO Kwan. He knew that CEO Kwan was using his dominance now. Then Seo Ju Hian moved to attack CEO Kwan with his relic. He threatened CEO Kwan with relic around his neck. Seo Ju Hian also asked CEO Kwan to stop it, and after CEO Kwan's dominance was stopped by Oh Seung-woo, he was able to move his body again. CEO Kwan also praised Seo Ju Hian, who apparently had good skills in controlling relics. CEO Kwan then said that he had heard a prophecy where the existence of the relic would be known by people all over the world. CEO Kwan said if he didn't want that to happen, so he made a conclusion to kill the person who knew the relic, that way he would be able to delay it. CEO Kwan attacked Seo Ju Hian with his power, but he was very surprised when Seo Ju Hian was not hit by his attack, because the relic that CEO Kwan was using would have moved Seo Ju Hian and his subordinates to an alternate dimension. CEO Kwan was even more shocked that the relic he was using was in the hands of Seo Ju Hian. Seo Ju Hian also said that he stole the relic when he threatened CEO Kwan before. Seo Ju Hian smiled and said he would use the relic well, making CEO Kwan feel defeated and a little panicked about what Seo Ju Hian would do to him. Then what will Seo Ju Hian do now? How would he use the relic?